It's March 2024 and I'm standing by the Bridge of the Gods on the Columbia River in Oregon. I'm continuing my exploration of the northwest corner of this state by taking a journey in search of waterfalls, vineyards and volcanoes. Portland is located close to the point where the Willamette River empties into the Columbia, both rivers being deep enough to allow large ships to navigate all the way from the Pacific, turning Portland into an important inland port. For my exploration beyond Portland, I'm following the Columbia, upstream past the city limits and into the Columbia River Gorge, an 80-mile-long canyon that's surprisingly wide in places, so wide that you wouldn't necessarily realise you were in one. But one of the biggest tells of the nature of the land is when you get close to the edge of the gorge and the almost vertical walls of rock, dotted with waterfalls cascading over the edge from the rim of the gorge down into the Columbia far below. One of the most famous is the Maultnomah Falls. At 620 foot high, they're the tallest falls in the state of Oregon. The falls have been a tourist site for a long time, with the pathway, viewing bridge, observation deck and lodge all being constructed in 1925 by Portland-based philanthropist and businessman Simon Benson, who also gifted the city the Benson Bubblers, water fountains that still operate to this day, originally designed to dissuade lumberjacks from frequenting the saloon bars of the city. Today the falls attract over 2 million visitors a year. The falls themselves are split into two parts. The upper falls have a drop of 542 feet into a pool before the water flows over into the lower falls with a drop of 69 feet. The middle pool has a drop of 9 feet across its width, which helps to get up to that full 620 feet height of the falls. The viewing bridge cuts across the falls between the upper and lower levels, allowing a pretty unique and slightly damp view of the cascading water and a better idea of quite how much 4.2 cubic metres a second of water looks like. Leaning over the bridge gives you an excellent view down the final drop. From Maultnomah Falls, it's a 23-mile journey on the interstate further up the canyon to reach the much quieter and less touristy location of our second waterfall of the day, the Falls of Starvation Creek. The falls and river they form were originally called Starve Out from an incident in the winter of 1884-85 where two trains became trapped by a blizzard for 2 weeks by the river. Supplies were delivered to the passengers and crew by locals on skis, so nobody starved, but over time the name has changed from Starve Out to Starvation. Much like Maultnomah, the Starvation Creek Falls are a two-tiered waterfall with a total elevation of 483 feet. From the falls at Starvation Creek, the tour turns its attention from waterfalls to vineyards, with stops at 2 vineyards along the way to taste the local wines. On our trip, we visited the Cathedral Ridge Vineyard in Hood River and the Grateful Vineyard near Parkdale. And to get there meant driving inland away from the river towards the mountains and through some very fertile land dotted not only with vineyards but also fruit orchards. Due to the different climate zones and relatively short distance across the state, Oregon has developed an international reputation for the quality and variation of the wines that are produced. Wine has been produced in the region since the 1840s, but only really became a major industry in the state from the 1960s onwards, following the restoration and rebuilding of vineyards that had laid dormant for 30 years after the repeal of Prohibition. Today, the state has 5 major wine-producing regions, or American Viticultural Areas, AVAs, comparable to the protected designation of origin rules in Europe that ensure only that Champagne region produces champagne. These are the Willamette Valley, Southern Oregon, Columbia Gorge, Columbia Valley and Snake River Valley AVAs, with some having several sub-regions. Our tour focused, naturally, on vineyards in the Columbia Gorge AVA. The Columbia Gorge AVA has some of the widest variations in climate and geography, creating a wide range of terroir, a French term for defining the character of a wine based on its environmental context and farming practices. The Columbia Gorge AVA use this to market their wines as a world of wine in 40 miles. Vineyards in the region grow a wide variety of grapes, including Syrah, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, Gewürztraminer, Zinfandel, Cabernet Sauvignon, Pinot Gris, Riesling and Sangiovese. And depending on the vineyard the tour visits, it's possible to try wines containing all of these grapes. The second vineyard of the day, the Grateful Vineyard, is also the lunch stop, where a couple of pizzas help sop up the excess wine, while sat in the looming shadow of our final destination of the day, Mount Hood. The final leg of the tour is the most impressive as we drive for 36 miles, halfway around and then halfway up the side of Mount Hood to Timberline Lodge. The lodge is located 6,000 feet, 1,829 metres up the side of the mountain, but the peak is almost twice as high up again at 11,249 feet, 3,429 metres. From the lunch stop vineyard, that's an elevation change of over 4,000 feet, 1,200 metres, and a very real change in climate from the warm, sunny and, more importantly, dry lands of the Hood River Valley to the middle of, in late March, a still very active ski resort, which had feet of snow on the ground. The journey up the mountain through the increasingly wintry scenes being pretty breathtaking. Mount Hood is a classic stratovolcano, a conical volcano characterised by a steep profile with a summit crater. It forms part of the Cascade Volcanic Arc, a 700-mile sweep of volcanoes stretching from British Columbia in Canada through Washington and Oregon to Northern California in the USA. Mount Hood is classified as active, though the last major period of eruption was around 1781 to 1782. However, vents near the summit do still emit carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide. Prior to the 1980 eruption of Mount St Helens, Mount Hood was the site of the only known fatality recorded to volcanic activity in the Cascades, when, in 1934, a climber suffocated in oxygen-poor air whilst exploring ice caves melted by fumaroles. Timberline Lodge was built between 1936 and 1938 by the Works Progress Administration, a programme that employed millions of job seekers as part of the Second New Deal series of programmes of President Franklin D. Roosevelt to help with the rebuilding the economy following the Great Depression. The lodge was dedicated on September 28, 1937 by the President himself. In the early years of the lodge, it suffered from operators who were unwilling or unable to maintain the building, and by 1955, Timberline Lodge was closed. Richard Kornstam, the fifth operator of the site, recalled difficulties when getting financing because of the government's claim of ownership over the lodge. He decided to maintain the lodge as though he owned it himself and was rapidly losing money, which carried on for 5 years before the explosion in popularity of skiing in the late 1950s allowed the family to start generating a profit from the 1960 season onwards. The lodge is still in the family, with Richard's son Jeff being the current area operator of Timberline Lodge. Now a National Historical Landmark, it's perhaps most well known for serving as the exterior of the Overlook Hotel in 1980's The Shining. Portland International Airport is the largest airport in Oregon and in the top 30 busiest airports in the US. There are regular flights across the US and Canada, as well as to key European cities such as London, Frankfurt and Amsterdam. Portland Union Station is a key stop on the Amtrak Coast Starlight, which runs daily from Seattle to Los Angeles, taking about a day and a half, and the Empire Building, which runs daily to Chicago, taking about 2 days to make the trip.